Hi, everyone. This is Kendall again with Sager Family Farm. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. We're going to be starting a new weekly project. So before we were checking in on our chicks every week as they grew, now they're getting pretty big and it's hard to see the differences from week to week. So we're going to switch projects and we're going to be planting seeds today. So it's my Sowing Seeds project. So we're going to go through planting some seeds and then we're going to check on them every week and go through the tools to measure their growth progress. So if you're new to watching me here, there's a little window over here where you can type questions to me. I usually get to the questions at the very end just because it's a little tricky to read and talk and show you guys video at once. Some ask you questions and they show up down here. So I'll point them out if I ask a question like that. And even though I'm here in my office, I have lots of videos of my backyard farm outside. So I have some videos today showing you how we're going to be planting seeds and then watching them from week to week. So this is our Sowing Seeds project. So let's go ahead and start out. I'm going to show you guys some of the materials we're going to use, but actually first, let me ask you a question. And this one, maybe your parents can help you out because this is going to be an open format question of, do you guys know what are some of the things that we're going to need for our plants to live? So can you type something over here or ask your parent to help you? What is something that a plant needs to grow? So something that maybe my cat would need to grow. I need to feed my cat. It needs shelter. It needs water. So it needs love and care and cleaning. So my cats need a lot of things. So what does a plant need if I'm going to be planting my seeds? So I'm looking over in our window and seeing what everybody is typing in. So it looks like we've got a lot of people saying we need water. And then we also need soil or dirt. And it looks like we also need the sun. And we're going to need our seed because that's the thing that's growing. So it looks like a lot of you guys have got some good answers. So now let me show you guys some of the materials that I got together to do this, because you can actually do this project at home. So if you can get a little seed packet, so next time your parents go out shopping or to a grocery store, even a lot of grocery stores do carry seeds. Some hardware stores, gardening nurseries are opening up these days. So you can get a little packet of seeds and follow along with me if you like and see how your own seeds grow. So let me first show you the stuff that we need to our plants. So here I've assembled everything on my kitchen counter. And the first thing to take a look at is I need some seeds. So the seeds that I chose are, I've got some sunflower seeds, which grow really big, really fast. I've got some radish seeds that sprout really quickly. I've got carrots, which I just really like to eat. And I even saved some pumpkin seeds from a pumpkin. I've got a little watering can to water my seeds. I have some soil from outside. So I put that in a little cup. I've got some pots, which this one is just a plastic cup. And I poked a little hole in the bottom so that water could drain out. So I made a cup into a pot. Here are some pots that I found just hanging around in my garage from last time I planted some things. And you can even reuse toilet paper rolls as a pot that you can plant straight in the ground. And then I've got a marker and some popsicles. And I'm going to use that to label my plants so that when I put them all in the dirt and then forget which plant I planted where, I at least have a stick with the plant's name on it to remind me. So those are all the materials that I'm going to start out with. And let me show you then also filling up our first little pot with dirt. So I chose this clear plastic cup and I'm just going to pour some dirt in it. And the reason why I chose a clear plastic cup is because sometimes we can see the roots growing. So when the plants get a little bigger, we can see their roots. I'm using a spoon to help top off all of the dirt in my cup. And I didn't fill it all the way full. So it's kind of like just a little tiny, like a finger's width from the top. And that way, when I water it, the water, if I fill it too full, it doesn't overflow out of the top. So leaving just a little bit of space at the top of my pot is usually a good plan for when I water it later. So I'm going to start out with planting our sunflower seeds. So the first thing I do before I plant is I usually take a look at my seed packet. So this is for a mammoth sunflower that grows 8 to 10 feet tall. So this is definitely going to be a lot taller than me. And let me draw over this and show you what I usually read on my seed packets. So this part right here, the seed depth. So this is how big of a hole I'm going to put my seed in. So it only needs a 1/2 inch. So that's something very small. So usually just even kind of half of the top of my finger when I poke it into the soil. And if I was planting this outside, I would usually also care about the seed spacing. So that's how far apart to put all of my plants. Because if I have a small plant, they can be planted closer. If I have a big plant like this giant sunflower, they need to be at least 1 foot apart or 12 inches apart so that they have space to grow, so that they can get all of their needs of the soil, water, and get enough sunlight. If they're too close, they often don't get enough sunlight because their leaves, as they grow, will start to shade each other. So those are the two things that I really like to take a look at when I'm planting my seeds. So now let's take a look at planting that seed. So let me go back to planting my sunflower seed. So when I'm planting my sunflower seed, I usually just use my finger and poke it in the soil just a little bit. So that there's a tiny little hole, and I only did like half the tip of my finger because that's about a 1/2 inch. I usually plant 2 to 3 seeds. My seeds were a little old, so I put a 3rd seed in there just so that at least 1 seed will sprout. And then I'm gonna water it. After my seeds sprout, if all 3 of them miraculously sprout, and that's fantastic, I'll usually trim away 2 of them so that there's only 1 plant growing. I also watered this on my counter, which, as you could see, it dripped out. So make sure you water this somewhere where it's okay to drip. So planting your plant when you're outside is a good idea. I planted the rest of my plants over my sink so that the water would drip into my sink. So make sure you put a little dish underneath your seeds when you're planting them. And now I wanted to show you guys, I also planted another sunflower in my toilet paper roll pot. So I wanted to show you guys how to make a pot out of a toilet paper roll. So this, I just cut a toilet paper roll in half, so it was a little bit shorter. And this is something that you can take newspaper, crumple it up, and then smash it all the way to the bottom. And usually the toilet paper can kind of hold in there, and the dirt is not very heavy. It's such a small little pot. So now we can actually put some dirt in there. So I'm using a spoon because this is such a small little pot. So in this one, I fill it all the way up to the top because I can actually plant this outside straight in the dirt. So I don't have to take it out of this pot. This pot will biodegrade, so it'll break down, and I can actually just put this in a hole, cover that up with dirt, and plant this straight outside. So then you can poke your finger in just a little bit and put your 3 seeds in there. So it looks like I got 3 seeds and like a rock. So I took out the rock and put in my 3 seeds. And then I added just a tiny bit more soil to make sure there was enough soil on top. And then you can water that. So I watered this one in my sink because these tend to leak a lot more because the water comes right through the toilet paper. So now, for labeling them, I usually label them with a little popsicle stick, or with the toilet paper ones, you can actually just write straight on the toilet paper roll to remember what it is. You could use a piece of tape, but I usually like to remember what I planted in my pots. And then I'm also planting some carrots and radishes, and I'm planting my sunflowers in pots because usually I can take them out of the pot and plant them in the dirt, and they don't seem to mind being moved. But carrots and radishes, we eat the roots. So the roots grow really big. So I usually like to put them straight into a veggie bed, or a bigger pot that I'm going to grow them in, a nice deep pot, as opposed to these tiny little pots that our sunflowers are going to outgrow. So I am going to eventually have to put this sunflower into a bigger pot or into the dirt somewhere. So, but these ones are missing something right now. And you can type it over here that, what am I missing? So I gave my seeds some soil. So they have some nice rich soil. And I watered all of my pots. This one is actually still even dripping a little tiny bit. But what do I need to do in order to give these plants everything they need? Where do they need to go? Let's see. Oh, it looks like a few of us are typing in sunshine. So we need some sunshine. So I need to put my plants outside into the sun. So I can plant some of my seeds straight out into the garden. So let me show you guys where I planted my carrots, and we're going to measure them straight out there. So let's take a look at this veggie bed. So here we've got my veggie bed. I've prepared it so all the soil is ready. There's a nice big blank space for my carrots to go into. And if we get a little closer, you can see that there's this brown cord kind of snaking through the entire veggie bed. And this is actually my watering system. So this is a drip irrigation. So in this tube, there are little tiny holes throughout, and water will drip out of that when I turn my sprinklers on. So that'll help me water and keep my seeds nice and wet. I don't want my seeds to be too wet, but I never want my soil to be totally dry when my seeds are sprouting. So they definitely need to be kept moist. So I usually check on my seeds every day or every other day, depending on how hot it is in our area. Right now it's gotten pretty hot out here, so I usually have to water seedlings once a day. So I usually water them in the morning, and it gets pretty hot and dry, but every single morning I give them a little bit of water so that the soil is always moist. So to plant my carrots, here's one way to plant carrots. So I actually went through, and right next to where the water is going to come out, I went and I poked a tiny little hole. I'm using some blue gloves because if you watched my sheep video a little while back, actually last week, I put some sheep manure into my soil, which is really great for the plants. But I like to keep my hands and my nails clean a little bit. So I used some gloves. And here I'm taking my seeds after I've poked all of my holes, and they're very tiny. So I usually just rub my fingers together to sprinkle a few little seeds in each hole. All of the holes are about 1 inch apart because carrots are much smaller than my big sunflowers. So I can then cover up the holes, and then I'm going to water my carrots. Another way, since carrot seeds are so tiny, sometimes I like to plant them like this. So this is a different way to plant our carrot seeds. So sometimes you can just take your finger and draw a line in the dirt. So just a nice shallow little line, because carrot seeds only like to be planted 1/4 of an inch deep. So not very deep, even more shallow than our sunflower seeds. So I twist my fingers together and sprinkle them all up and down that line. And then when the carrots sprout, I can pull out some of the carrots to make sure they're all spaced the right distance apart, which I'll show you guys once they sprout. So that's another technique for planting little tiny seeds, because the sunflower seeds are much bigger and much easier to plant. So once I've got all of my carrots in the ground, just like I did for my tiny little pots, I'm going to make sure I labeled where I planted these things, because sometimes I forget what I put in there, especially if it takes a little longer to sprout. So I planted a carrot mix, and I also put the date that I planted them, so that way if I'm like, there are no carrots growing, I can think to how long it takes a carrot to sprout. And I can usually find all of that information on the seed packet. So if we go and look at a carrot seed packet, so there are my sunflowers, But here's the back of my carrot seed packet, and let's circle the part that I'm looking at. So I usually look at this part. So carrots are one of the longer seeds. So sometimes these carrots might not sprout by next week. So that's why I planted a lot of different plants. Is carrots take 10 to 25 days to pop out of the ground. So we might not see carrots next week. But I also in my veggie bed planted some radishes, which usually pop up in about 5 days. And then the sunflower seeds, it says it can take up to 2 weeks, but I usually have them sprout in 1 week. So especially if you give them all of their needs and it's nice and warm. So now let's go back out to my veggie bed and see what else I did to those carrot seeds. So we labeled them. So now I need to water them. So I do have the watering system. But sometimes if I don't want to turn my whole sprinkler system on, I can use a hose. You can use a watering can. Another cool way to water your garden is a rain cup. So you can actually take one of those plastic cups that I was using as a pot, and you can have your parents poke a bunch of holes in the bottom, and you can actually use a bucket and scoop it up and then be a rain cloud over top of your veggie bed. So when I have students in my garden, I usually have them water that way because it's a nice gentle way to water. I don't want to water with the hose on full pressure blasting the soil because then the seeds might get out of place or get pushed too deep. So the seeds might not be in good shape if I water them too hard. So I have planted my sunflower seeds. I planted carrots. I did also plant some radishes, but I didn't take any videos. And I still need to plant my pumpkin seeds. So I'm planting all of these different types of seeds. And next week, we're going to see which ones sprouted. And we're going to measure them with a variety of tools. So I'm going to have some rulers, some measuring tapes. We can even measure with like Lego blocks and things like that. So hopefully my seeds will sprout by next week and we will track how fast they're growing because different seeds definitely grow at different rates. So we'll see which ones grow the fastest, the tallest, and how big we can get our seedlings in a few weeks. So I'm going to go look over here in the chat window. You can type me some questions. And let's see. It looks like, oh, maybe there were a few internet issues, and it might be me. I was having a few internet issues earlier. So hopefully the recording of this video, if you missed anything, will be nice and smooth. So usually my recordings look pretty good. I got a question, will there be any more updates on the chickens? So I'm not going to do regular updates on the chickens, but I'm going to continue doing digital classes until the end of the school year, so till about mid-June. So I'll give you guys some periodic updates on the chickens. So probably in 2 to 3 weeks, I'll see if I can get a picture of the chickens because since the chickens are 6 weeks old today, they're actually able to be outside with no heat lamp at all. So some of my chickens are actually going to different homes. So different people are adopting my chickens, but they're really nice people. So I'm sure they will send me a picture or two so that we can see how they're growing. I will also be keeping a few of the chickens, but not all of them. So I think Captain Chicken Pants, Ross, and Pip will be staying with me, but Delilah and Cookie are going to another home. So I'll definitely give you guys some updates on the chickens, but it won't be weekly like we've been doing. So let's see. And then when will we have our next tour? So next tour will be, let's see, I will probably do some more tours and updates. So I'm not sure exactly when, but I will keep it on the calendar because I'll definitely be shifting through all of my animals. So this week we're doing a lot of garden stuff, but next week we'll switch back to some animals, but I'm not sure which ones yet. So type in if you have any suggestions. Let's see. What is my favorite plant to watch grow? Ooh, and they love watching green beans. So let's see, my favorite plant to watch grow is probably a sunflower because the sunflowers grow so fast. I also really like watching sweet peas though, because sweet peas have beautiful fragrant flowers. So I love the smell of sweet peas. And when they really get growing, they can grow really fast as well. So I like plants that grow really, really fast because it's really easy to see the differences even from day to day. Let's see. Do I have a squash? So my pumpkin is actually a type of squash. So I will be growing my pumpkin. I usually like to put in cucumbers as well. So I really like growing cucumbers. So those are both in the squash family. So those are some squashes that I like to grow. But I do also like acorn squash. Let's see. Oh, and I've got a yay for Captain Chicken Pants. So we will be able to have more updates on Captain Chicken Pants because he's staying here with me. So let's see. I think I've gotten through all of my questions. I hope some of you might be able to follow along with your own seeds. So if you can pick your favorite seed to follow along with, because you don't need very much for them. So these plants will actually probably be going on my windowsill. I'm going to make sure to keep them on a plate so that any water that drips stays on the plate and isn't all over my windowsill or my floor or my walls. So I'm going to put them in a sunny window. If you have a balcony, you can put them out on your balcony. If you have a veggie bed, you can plant some seeds in your veggie bed and follow along. So there's definitely a lot of ways you can follow along. You can grow in your kitchen, on your balcony, in your garden. So thank you so much for watching today, and I am really excited to see if any of our plants sprout and how big they sprout next week. So see you guys next week. Bye.